If we'll all rise, we'll have the reading of the prayer, please.
Lord, by the strength of thy Holy Spirit, grant us the willingness to place service above personal gain and to respect our obligations of justice in our positions as members of the Council of the Town of Essex.
Amen. Welcome everyone in attendance and all the viewers at home also. I would now declare the meeting open, and I would ask if there's any conflicts amongst the council members, this evening's agenda. No, thank you very much. We have one councilor member, Councilor John Scott, who is sick at home and won't be here in attendance this evening. Looking for the adoption of the published agenda for Monday, June the 16th. Councilor Vokes, Councilor Blondie. Any questions? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. The adoption of the minutes of June 2nd regular council meeting. Councilor Vokes. Okay, well, we'll go back. Right, yep. Okay. Well, we have a motion, Councilor Vokes and Councilor Blondie, was it second? Well, all in favor of that motion? Motion carries. Now we'll go back.
No. I just have to, through your worship, I have 2 items to add to the published agenda. I have the addition of the request from Mayor McDermott to discuss community improvement plan grant applications and correspondence from Canada Post surrounding their 5-point strategy and the future direction of mail delivery. And I was also just advised that I believe item 6B, public presentations, is being deferred. Is that correct? Is that the right one?
Councilor Baker.
Do you need a motion for that deferral on item 6B,
We will.
the presentation? You need that? I'll move deferral.
Okay, as soon as we get to that one, she says. Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Bondi.
Thank you. I also have a notice of motion for later too, please. Thanks.
Okay, so we're into the public presentations. First of all, BDO Dunwoody 2013 draft financial statements. Did I see Mike? There he is. Donna and Jeff. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much. So as noted, I'm Mike Cowan, a partner with BDO here in town. We're going to go through the statements. I'm going to just point out the highlights. Don't want to take too much time. I know you guys have a real busy meeting, but have to go through some things to make sure you guys understand the statements that we're asking, that will be asked of you to pass. So there's one caveat with the statements. The Union Water statements are not final yet, so they're in draft mode. They have the changes that are from the drafts have been reflected in these statements, but again, until those are final, we can't issue finals here. But with any, if there's any significant changes, I'm sure Donna would make sure that those were noted to you after this date. So, if we're looking at the statements, page 2 and 3 of the statements are our independent auditor's report. So the key here is that we're giving a clean opinion, and essentially the first paragraph says what we're auditing. The second paragraph says that it's management's responsibility for the statements to make sure that they are correct. The next few paragraphs comment on our responsibilities and how we go about our audit procedures. And then on to the second page of the report where it indicates that, in our opinion, we're saying the statements present fairly in all material respects. The financial position of the town at December 31st, 2013, and their financial performance and cash flows for the year that ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So again, the key here, as I pointed out in the past several years when I come to council, the statements are prepared under Canadian public sector accounting standards. You might hear me say the words PSAB, so that's just me using the short form. You'll recall the old style statements probably. We call that pre-PSAB, which is where essentially how you guys budget. It's more of a modified cash basis type where you use monies to operate and also for capital. For PSAB purposes, again, we capitalize everything that's capital in nature and amortize it, depreciate it over its useful life. The other thing you'll note on the report is it's dated June 16th, which is today, and that's under the assumption that you would approve the statements today. So on to page 4 is the consolidated statement of financial position. First thing you might notice is that it says the prior year's restated, and one of the main reasons, well, the only reason for that is that the ELK statements were restated. So your investment in ELK was decreased accordingly based on, I think it was the OEB report, and that was noted in the ELK statements, and there's a note disclosure in here under the ELK section in note 5. So looking at what you'd possibly refer to as the balance sheet, but the statement of financial position, you'll see cash position has increased, and the main reason there is that there's some more monies that have been pushed into reserves. A lot of the capital projects, how they're being financed and whatever, there's a little bit more into reserves at the end of the year. And again, under the PSAB statements, you don't necessarily see your reserves. I will point out a spot where you can see what they are, but you don't see them as in the old style of the financial statements. Just going down the line on the statement of financial position, there aren't too many major differences or changes. You'll see accounts receivable are a little bit higher, just again a timing thing of when certain items are collected. There was a specific project, is it the Shepley drain? Does I have that? There was a specific project, I thought it was Shepley, but where there was a significant amount of receivables at the year end that were collected or are to be collected within a year after December 31st. It's just a timing instance of on a few things like that. If you look at the liability section, you will notice that net long-term debt has increased. So there were some new debentures done during the year, and I'll highlight that when we get to note 8. At the bottom, you'll see the surplus of 193 million, and again, to remind you, that's not a cash surplus. It's just to show you, you'll see in that number 182 million is your tangible capital assets. So that's again for the past, I think it's been about 4 or 5 years now, where we've had the capital assets shown on the statements in accordance with PSAB. So, and we amortize those over the life of the assets. So if you flip to the next page, it's the consolidated statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So there's 3 columns. You have the budget column, and you have the actual column for 2013, and then you have, again, the restated column. And really the only thing that's changed again is the ELK data. So just comparing sort of year to year, you'll see that for the most part, taxation revenue is up, but it's in line with budget. Grant revenue is higher than budget and the prior year, and that's just a matter of timing of when grants become available. And going down the line, for the most part, you'll see that there are certain increases to budget or from prior year or variances, but for the most part, things are relatively explained from our audit work and from discussions with your staff. On the expense front, you'll see differences from current year to prior year and also from budget. Some of those differences extend to when capital projects are done and when we begin amortizing them. So there's nothing too major in terms of differences from budget. In fact, overall, I think you were just, was it about 20,000? No, I'm sorry, it was less than a $20,000 surplus. Yeah, it was about $7,000, which means that essentially the size of a budget was almost a balanced budget. So if we flip to the next page, you'll see the statement of changes in net financial assets and debt. This just highlights some of the PSAB adjustments, so it shows acquisition of tangible capital assets. And you'll see that those are lower than in budget, and that's just, again, a timing issuance of when things are financed and when capital projects come to fruition. And you'll see that also amortization jumped significantly. During the year, it was determined that some assets may have been originally thought to have had longer useful lives. So some assets were reviewed, and where I believe amortizing roads is the key one, where we're writing off the roads at a quicker rate. I want to say it went from a range of around 50 years to 25 years. So just before I said that, I wanted to make sure, because Jeff's in charge of that. So, but because of that, the roads do get written off much quicker. So the next page is the statement of cash flows, and this takes your surplus according to the statements and brings it down to how the cash position changed. You'll see halfway down the page, acquisition of tangible capital assets, which we just touched on. You'll see changes in the ELK investment. You'll see the long-term debt issued about 3/4 of the way down the page, and long-term debt repaid. So overall, again, a cash increase, but again, a lot of that has to do with monies going to reserves, and I believe you'll see that coming out for capital projects in 2014. It's really just a timing matter. The next several pages, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but they're just notes explaining how certain numbers come to be, how certain positions are taken on accounting matters. The one thing I will note, on page 11, at the very top, there's a new section on government transfers. Doesn't really affect too much, as I think for the most part transfers were treated fairly consistently to before, but there is a new statement in terms of how and when transfers to and from are to be posted. Onto page 12, there's the note 3 that comments on the changes in amortization. You see the paved roads there was changed from 50 to 25 years. And just going through, as you keep going through the pages, there's a little bit more information on the ELK investment, and there's comments on that on page 14, the second part of note 5 about that ELK, why that caused a change to your statements. Your investment in Union Water is noted there. Moving on to page 16 is long-term debt. So you see all the different debentures that have been issued over the past several years of the town's existence. And you see the breakdown of the loans by user fee supported, property tax supported. You see the couple new debentures in that section. And then the benefiting property owners on page 17. Moving forward, I mentioned there'd be a part where we can see the capital, the reserves, and things like that. In note 11 on page 19, the top part, 11A, just breaks down how the surplus according to PSAB standards breaks down to sort of the old style, and part B shows the different reserves. So you'll see that there were increases in the capital purposes reserves, the landfill reserve, contingencies, and others. So again, I've commented on the cash position being the reserves coming up, but again, I think we'll see those come down a little bit depending on other budgeting matters in 2014, just due to a matter of timing for capital projects. Just continuing through, there's a little bit more information on page 22 and note 14. It takes the budget in terms of how it was approved by council and compares it to how it's shown here for PSAP purposes. And going through, there's a few more explanatory notes. Until you get to page 26 and 27, this is a breakdown of your tangible capital assets. So it shows breakdown by land, buildings, etc. Shows additions and amortization disposals for the year. And then on page 28 and 29, we have segment disclosures. So again, just a little bit more information to break down the different types of revenue, different types of expenses by segment. And again, these are sort of the old segments that we used to see in the financial statements for all the different funds, current capital, etc. And last but not least, we have the trust funds. And for draft purposes, we're still showing the Ontario Home Renewal Program. We're going to get rid of that column. I think I wanted to just leave it there so you see that it's now done. So all we really have is the cemetery, and that activity is shown there. So before I open up to any questions, I just want to thank Donna, Jeff, and their team for all their help in going through the audit. It's, as hopefully not too many people are aware, auditing's not always fun, so hopefully we're not too disruptive, and we appreciate all the assistance we get when we come in to do our work.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions of Mike and or Jeff and Donna? Okay. Someone like to, Councilor Vokes moves to receive and adopt, Randy? Yep, okay. Councilor Bondi, any questions to the motion? All in favor of that motion? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Three. Great job, again.
Thanks, Ron. Or Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Now, we would have had a report from Mary Ann Love, Senior Consultant, McDonald Associates. Councilor Baker. Oh, we have the,
Move deferral?
yep. And I think it was Councilor Vokes that seconded it, okay. Any questions to the motion? All in favor of that motion? Motion carries. Thank you. C, presentation, Dan Riem, 14405 14th Concession Road. Dan, welcome, sir. And you have, once you get seated there and get turned on, you have 5 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Dan Reum. I live on the 14th concession there, about halfway between Walker Road and the Walker Side Road. A couple of years ago, one of the Sanos there come along, getting everyone on the 14th there to sign a little petition there to try and get that road blacked out, retired, and chipped. And this has been kind of, from what I've heard, it's been kind of going on and off for the last 10 or 15 years, but everybody apparently signed the petition. And just a few weeks ago, they were just happened to be adding some more gravel there on the road between Walker Road and the County Road 15 there. So I kind of thought I'd run over to Sanos there to see what was going on with that, if you heard anything back from it. And he told me that they just, I think he said it was last year, they basically passed a portion to do a portion of the 14th. And he told me that they're basically, we're going to do between County Road 15 and the Pinkerton Road. And that kind of puzzled me as to seeing as I realize there's not that much traffic on that road, but I've lived there for 20 years, and the majority of it is basically at the other end, especially between the Highland Side Road and the Pinkerton there. There's a grand total of 2 homes on that road, on that section of the road there, and yet they're starting from there and heading west towards Walker Road. I'm just wondering why they decided to start at that end and head, basically, it just seems to kind of the reverse because of where the traffic is. Because I remember a couple of years ago they put a traffic counter there on the road, and it's ironic it happened to be at just off Walker Road there where they had the counter. And also, well, he purchased the land there about 5 or 6 years ago. Mike Slankovic, he's got the sod farm there on County Road 8. And he's got two parcels of land on the 14th. That are one's right at the 14th and the Walker Side Road. And the next one's just down the road there at the Old Malden Road. And he's right there now selling sod, which naturally means the traffic. I live there. I know that the vast majority of people come there to get sod, believe it or not, are coming off Walker Road down that road. And it just puzzles me as to why they chose to do the road starting at the Pinkerton heading west when, I mean, it's just common sense where the majority of the traffic is at the other end of the road there. Why didn't they start at Walker Road and come this way? That's what puzzles me. I realize from talking to Rick there a couple weeks ago, the financial cost in it there, he gave me a figure roughly of about $75,000 a kilometer to do the job there, and to do that, just out of curiosity, like a couple weeks ago, I just run down the truck there with the odometer, and it's 9.8 clicks from one end to the other, so that's $75,000 a click. You're looking at $750,000 there roughly. I realize it's not a drop in the bucket to do it, but I'm just wondering as to why they chose to start at the Pinkerton Road and basically go that way, especially when that, like I say, that half that distance to the County Road 15 that they budgeted for, there's a grand total of 2 homes on that section of the road, and it's based on the way they, that's another thing I've noticed over the years living there is when they come in, every once in a while they come and grade the road there. And when they grade the road, it usually happens a little quicker if we get rain shortly after, but if there's no rain, whatever. But the gravel tends to roll off. Yeah, I mean, anybody just traveling down that road, you can just see where the gravel tends to roll off, slope towards a ditch quicker than at any other part of the road. And it usually between Walker Road and the Walker Side Road, it does it the quickest, simply because that's where the majority of the cars go up and down. As you go further down the road there, the portions where they grade at the same time, I mean, the stone's still sitting there. It looks like which basically is telling you there's not much traffic at that end. But yet they chose to start at the end where the least amount of the traffic is to do the road. And that's, like I told Rick, I mean, it's just plain Jane common sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. I'm just wondering why they chose it, and is there any time frame in the future as to when they're going to do the balance of the road all the way to Walker Road. That's basically what I come to see. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I think I'll go right to Mr. Nepsey. He'll be able to probably give you all the answers that the questions you've asked. Chris?
Through your worship, through budget deliberations, this council, Mr. Riom, has been committed to constructing tar and chip roads where gravel roads were there before the last few years. So they've put aside a little bit of money every year to do a section of road, as you probably know that already. We try and propose sections of road to council as administration that have high traffic counts, that have what appear to be good connectivity to other paved hard surface roads as well. And we look at as well what's the existing base that's on there. So the 14th is one of, I guess, it's something that administration and council debated on, I think, to put it nicely, back and forth through budget deliberations as far as the need to tar and chip. But like I said, this council is committed to doing that. Starting on the east end, I can't speak for council, but because we did the Pinkerton the year before, and that little stretch of the 14th to the cemetery the year before in that stretch, I believe council wanted to extend and move forward from that basis westerly. The plan to continue on the rest of the 14th is again in council's hands, but it would make sense to continue with that section of road next, as well as Old Malden Road, so that that whole quadrant is done for me. As far as me sending my grader out, then I don't have to go past the baton, right? It's kind of the last part of the area, exactly, Mr. Graham. So, but again, that's council's, when it comes down to budget and it comes down to those tough decisions they have to make, I think that's one that, you know, council has constantly struggled with as far as putting money after that type of infrastructure, because this council knows that, you know, although I don't live on a gravel road, and I can appreciate that you do, but in my mind, there's really nothing wrong with a good gravel road. But again, these guys have the commitment to continue to do stretches of kilometers of that. So I mean, as far as rhyme or reason goes, that's my understanding of what happened and what transpired through budget this year. Maybe council can back me up on that. But as far as next year, that would be the natural step if we're going to continue that section of the 14th and Old Malden. That would be natural, yeah.
Any other comments from the council members or anything? Oh, Deputy Mayor Malash and Councillor Baker.
Thank you, through your worship. One of the things that Chris is saying is that it is a council decision as far as ultimately what section is done, because there's 7 of us on council here, and there's a vote as far as what section we wanted, what we want done. I was proposing that the sections that were more traveled, or the sections where we had more residents, such as yourself, were done first. And I think Chris knows this as well, but administration came back with a recommendation to council saying you prefer to go from the Pinkerton to County Road 15. And I think it had more to do with number of kilometers that we could afford to do, what administration felt we could afford, but also connectivity with tar and chip to tar and chip. It made it easier for grading purposes, and it also made it easier for snow plowing, and so in both seasons, winter and summer. And I think they were looking, administration, when they made their recommendation, were looking more towards an efficient operation in that sense. And I think that they believed as well that even by the end of this year, we would have had the 14th, the entire 14th, on the route to being tar and chipped for next year. But as it turned out, we had a pretty tight budget this year, and you know, we would have liked to have gone further and rather than and continued down the 14th and Old Malden to get that finished, so that that entire area was done. We wouldn't have to continuously send our grader that far north, because that's the furthest spot that we have to contend with the grader. It's just putting miles and kilometers on our grader that we prefer not to. It'll extend the life of our grader. So as Mr. Nepsey was suggesting, I think council's of the mind frame that yes, that's the progression that we want to, that we've talked about doing. Of course, we're going to have, hopefully all of us will be here again next term of council when we get to the next budget session, but there's no guarantee. Hopefully the next council has the same mind frame. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Baker?
Yeah, basically my questions were really answered by Deputy Mayor Malash. I was just trying to remember how we came to that decision, and I do know it was based on operational efficiencies was a big part of it, and connectivity. But I couldn't recall if we took into fact traffic counts, and I think that's a component, but it's not the only component in terms of this particular light to connect. So I think the answer has been provided.
You want to turn your microphone on, Dan, please?
I just remember they turned they had the counter there when they set it up there. It was right near Walker Road there. You know, so whether they had another one down around the Highland Side Road, I don't know. I never went to look, but I just remember it being put there. So figuring they count with traffic that's coming basically coming out Walker Road this way type of thing.
Okay, so I think, and then you made note that there's a new sod business there on
Well, it's
connectivity.
picked up a little bit. It's seasonal work because of the sod farm there now. He's got the parcel of land and he's stripping the sod on there. It's right on the 14th and the Old Malden Road.
So what my point was, I think we'll take that in consideration in terms of moving forward if we're here for next budget.
Well, actually, if I'm not mistaken, just a year or 2 years ago was the first year he seeded that portion of land in sod. He's owned the land for the last 5 or 6 years, but this is the first time there's been sod there, so, and that's just so happens to be where he's taking it off there right now, so that ups the traffic a little. I mean, it's seasonal traffic, they're not coming down there in the wintertime, but it is there.
Yep. Mr. Nepsey?
Through your worship, just to clarify, we do traffic counts every year on all our sections of road, not just necessarily the whole road. We have a couple of summer students that'll move the traffic meter in the different hubs. So we do Walker to Walker Side Road to Old Malden Road to the County Road to Highland. We do all those chunks. As far as traffic counts on the 14th, and again, it's a one-day count in the summer. We try and do them in the summer so there's no school buses and whatnot. But we've taken these one-day counts for the last 5 or 6 years, so it gives us a pretty good indication of traffic on that road. So the section that Mr. Reham's talking about from Walker Side Road, for the last 5 years, it's around 99 cars a day. And then moving easterly, it drops a little bit, 78, 81, and then following the county road, so between County Road and Highland is 132, and then it drops again significantly between Highland and Pinkerton. So I think, as Councillor Malash noted, part of that is if you look at traffic counts, even though they're fairly close together, there is a little bit more traffic east of the county road. And as well, as far as length of road, if I was going to do that other section of the 14th, I would recommend to do the 14th and the Old Malden. So now I effectively double what I have to do. So that played a factor in starting with that section on the east. So.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Vokes?
Thank you, Your Worship. I've made footnote, obviously, of your concerns about the 14th, but something that needs to be said, during the process of budget deliberations, we bicker and argue and choose and go through the process that ultimately gets us where we need to be. But at the end of it, here's not what isn't being said here tonight. Is Councillor Malash, at the conclusion of our budget deliberations, the 14th wasn't even on the table. And Richard was insistent that we didn't finalize the budget considerations until the 14th gets in there. And then he went back to the table and he continued his arguments and we ultimately manipulated or changed the budget to afford Richard some opportunity to get some money for the 14th. If this council would have had their way, a nickel wouldn't have gone towards the 14th, and it was a result of Richard's endeavors we got it. So you need to know that. I think it's important for Richard that you need to know that. It was his arguments and his position, and I'm sure he'll carry that torch for you next year too.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything else? Motion received. Councillor Baker, Councillor Bowman, any questions to the motion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much, sir. We are now at D, Colleen Lipper, Two Waves Day Spa, Essex Center Community Improvement Application, CIP Plan. There, she's hiding behind a chair. Welcome, young lady, once again. As soon as you get situated, you're going to have 5 minutes.
I wasn't really ready to talk. For the most part, my building doesn't look nice. I would like it to look better, and I need your help through this CIP program. So Heather has put together this report that I'm sure you all have to look over, and hopefully you like it and you approve it, and I can get started. That's about it.
Thank you very much for your great presentation. Councillor Vokes.
Ms. Lippert, how you doing? Look, I'm excited about getting this done. Obviously, our ever-dreaded awning hopefully will come down. So if council approves this, Heather, tonight, or Jeff, when would the process start? I believe it's a 2-stage process, is it not? The first and then the second, I'll let you speak to that.
You can come through me, okay, Heather? Thank you very much. Not me, the chair, I should say.
Through you, Your Worship, the next step in the process would be for Colleen, as the owner of the property, to enter into an agreement with the town. And that's a very simple process. It's basically a form that we have already set up and gone through with the Harrow Community Improvement Plan. So we'll be using that same setup. And is normally the person signs the agreement and then starts work, but sometimes in order to save time, we've been working with them to allow them to start earlier and work on the agreement with us as we go through the process.
So if I could, then with that being said, what is the earliest we could start then? Let's start when we can start.
As far as I'm concerned, through you, Your Worship, as far as I'm concerned, the improvements that are being proposed by Colleen are very straightforward, and I know that the Essex Center BIA is in full support of her proposal. So as far as I'm concerned, she can start immediately.
Excellent, okay. So we just have to obviously support this for tonight, and then we'll move from there, and she can start as soon as she chooses to. Can we
To Your
start by
Worship,
taking
yes.
that awning down? Can we start by taking that awning down?
Councillor Baker?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ms. Lippert, thanks a lot. I'm glad you came forward tonight to kind of be excited about this, because this is really setting the standard here of a number of businesses to take advantage of the CIP. The only way this works and the way that we can continue to fund it is by businesses like you to take advantage, and really thank you, because once one starts, and I do believe there's some others in the hopper too that we've heard of, which is going to really improve the downtown. I know lots of work is being done by the BAA in terms, and so is it with the municipality in terms of streetscaping. So this is just a start. We would hope that many of the businesses come forward. They see now, later on tonight, we're going to get a report that talks about some other mechanisms in the CIP that will provide for architecture and landscaping. So it's pretty exciting to see that the uptake is there. We're getting a lot of uptake coming in Harrow as well. So thanks for coming forward and taking advantage of it.
Anyone else? Councillor Vokes? Yes, sir. Move receipt and support. Councillor Bowman, any questions to the motion? All in favor of the motion? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Okay, the next public presentation is Linda Eiler, past president and founder of the Essex and Community Historical Research Society, Eckers, requesting the street closure. Linda? We won't even start the clock, because that won't take 5 minutes, I know that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council members, town staff, over the years, Eckers has had an open house where we have had military vehicles, we've had things out on the street, we've had where we're honoring our military, and this year again we would like to do the same thing, just closing the street off, basically in the block in front of the Essex Community Historical Research Society, which most of you know is the old Carnegie Library building. And we have some of the, one or two of the SOM military vehicles. Last I heard, one of the cadet groups were going to try to get out so that they could actually do a drill out on the street. So with, you know, we can have the street closed, that would create, you know, less traffic problems. And the other thing would be to, just because of what we're doing, would be to lift the noise bylaw for the day from 11 o'clock until 4 o'clock. And that would be for June the 21st, which is this Saturday. And
Okay.
that's about it.
Thank you very much. Support the recommendations by Councillor Bundy and Councillor Vokes. Any questions to the motion? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Don't leave.
Thank you.
Okay, Linda Eiler, Secretary of the Southern Ontario Military Muster, SOM.
Okay, August the 16th and 17th, the Southern Ontario Military Muster is being able to have our event again at the back section of the Essex Arena Complex. And what we're asking for again this year would be the big 4x8 sign that Jeff had made would be put out in the grass area close to the Arner Town line, as long as it's not obstructing the view for traffic. And that would start roughly about July the 5th. And, it's just stating that it's the military muster and the date, I believe, of the event. And then also requesting, after the Fun Fest is over, we use the same sign on the front lawn of the town hall. So if we could have slam signs turn around in the day after the Fun Fest is over with, put up the same sign like we did last year. And I don't know if I put it on here to lift the noise bylaw for that weekend. And that's about it, again.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Bowman.
Just move that we accept and support it.
Seconded by Councillor Vokes. Any questions to the motion? Deputy Mayor Meloche and then Councillor Baker.
Thank you. Through your worship, I just want to pass it by our Director of Community Services to make sure that he's up on all of this, all these requests, and that everything's okay with Community Services.
Through your worship, having constant contact with Linda, and she's updated us, and we're good with the same setup as last year.
Thank you. Councillor Baker.
Yeah, that was just kind of my questions, but through your worship, just a question to administration, actually for planning. Do we have any special requirements for signage? I know we did last year. I just want to make sure we're in compliance. And is the sign going to be a portable sign on Town Hall, or is it a erected wood frame sign?
At Town Hall, it's the portable sign that's out front of the building right now. So we would, Fun Fest information would come down, and then some information would go up.
Okay, thanks. And administration, again, through planning, is there any sign bylaws that we have to be, make sure that they're in place for, at the arena, to have the 4x8 sign erected?
Through your worship, at the present time, we're redoing our sign bylaw, and it's certainly not in place yet. We haven't even gone to the public with it. Any special types of signage can certainly go to council for their permission. So in a case like this, there's no reason why council couldn't just authorize that the signage be allowed. And we certainly are going to deal with portable signage in our new sign bylaw, but for now it's fine.
Thank you. Anything further? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Down to G, Essex Memorial Spitfire Committee,